Hello, Professor. Welcome to Team J's issue analysis presentation over the company Nike. We'll be covering two operation issues, one marketing issue and one finance issue. We're not able to find any major accounting issues over their existence. They have been cited for non-compliance with GAAP, but nothing that would bring media attention to write on. So the first issue we will be discussing is operation issue, and it's exploiting child labor. So Human Rights Group discovered that Nike was exploiting child laborers in undeveloped countries such as Cambodia, Pakistan, and Indonesia. In June of 1996, Life magazine ran a story of Nike employing children to stitch the soccer balls. And the picture listed below is the actual picture that was ran in the magazine, and it shows the boy hovering over the Nike balls and stitching them together. This was the media recognition of the child labor use in Nike. Nike's initial response was that the minimum age in a lot of these undeveloped countries was 14, so they weren't breaking any of those countries' laws. They also used subcontractors to hire people to get the work that they needed done. So they were saying it was a subcontractor's responsibility to ensure that these child labor was not occurring. Also, especially in Pakistan, the production wasn't occurring in factories. They were occurring in household, which Nike was saying this was making it impossible to monitor to who was actually doing the labor. So why this is an issue? Nike is a U.S. company, and here in the U.S. they were using their public image as to be good by donating equipment to low-income schools. They were also participating in other charity events. So they had a very good public image here in America. The Human Rights Group, they just didn't agree that an American company would go overseas and use child labor as a cheap way when they would not be able to get away with that here in the US. Also, Nike had very high profile athletes that were endorsing their product, such as Tiger Woods and other tennis players. And those athletes didn't want to endorse Nike because they didn't want to be associated with a company who used children to complete their products. So by 1997, Nike was really feeling the public pressure. And in May of 1998, Phil Knight, the owner of Nike, speaks at the National Press Club. And he gives a couple of promises that things that they're going to change how their company is doing business internationally. One of the things specifically to child labor was they were going to increase the minimum age in the countries where it was legally okay to hire children who were 14. They were going to increase that to 16. So in apparel factories, 16 was going to be the age. If they were younger than 16, they were going to let those employees go. However, once they became legal age, they were going to allow them to come back to work for the company. In the Nike footwear factories, they raised the minimum age to 18 because in these factories, they dealt with heavier machinery and some hazardous waste, so they did increase that age to 18. They also agreed to let non-government organizations come into these factories and monitor to ensure that their agreement was being, that they were honoring their agreement. So unfortunately, the situation is not unique to Nike. Even though Life ran, their picture was of the Nike soccer balls. Reebok and Adidas were also catching public heat at the same time. Especially Adidas, they were also having their soccer balls done in the same manner as in Pakistan, in the same city that Nike was. It just wasn't made as public as the Nike one was because of the picture. Nike clearly needs to articulate acceptable labor practice with the subcontractors to ensure that this practice doesn't continue. I also think that they need to have annual surprise audits that should occur using a third-party American-based contractor who would go over to the bigger factories at least once a year, into the smaller factories every other year, to ensure that they are not hiring children to manufacture their product. And should they have so many violations, they would be penalized and be forced to pay a fine. So this is going to conclude our operation analysis for child labor. Bhushara will next present the operation issue for the sweatshops.